Welcome back, boys and girls, in continuing our series in social studies, and we will continue looking today at leaving the plantation. Now, leaving the plantation, the East Indians traveled as salesmen, and they did a bit of peddling. So they sell different things, the jewelry that they sold. They also were goldsmiths, so they made some jewels. And today we can still see a lot of Indian salesmen around selling jewelry and peddling their wear. You look at Jewelorama, for instance. That's an Indian established business in Jamaica. But the Indians also grew rice. They introduced paddy rice to Jamaica. And these East Indians, they made us really love the rice and the peas. But we didn't stop at the rice and the peas, because the Indians brought to Jamaica curry. And it made the Afro-Jamaicans now think of currying the goat. And the Indians themselves were already currying the goat. You find that if you check google.com or you check some of the textbooks, the encyclopedias, which most of you might not know of, but you have to ask your parents and your grandparents about encyclopedias, the Filipinos, the East Indians, and Jamaicans are the few people in the world that love curried goat. With the influence from the East Indians, the Africans started to cook the goat brain. But that's for another lesson. But it also infuses in this lesson, because the influence and the relationship between the East Indians and the Africans led them to love the curry goat. And there is something that a song way back in the 1960s, that ram goat liver good for make mannish water. So mannish water, although some men call it womanish water, is something that Jamaicans love to drink. This too is influenced by the East Indians. So we have them to thank for a lot of things. The first rice mills in Jamaica was set up in the 1890s, and this is because the East Indians introduced paddy rice to Jamaica. But in the mid-1800s, when the East Indians came here, they introduced growing rice, because it became a staple crop, and a staple crop is the main crop of things that they would eat. Most of you love rice and peas. This is where it comes from. The white rice, this is where it also comes from. The Chinese introduced pak choy, popularly known as pak chow, which is grown right across Jamaica. Now, if we look at the Chinese that came here to build the highway by the company China Harbor, you check anywhere where they settle, they're also planting vegetables, including pak choy, which we call pak chow. Now, when the East Indians and the Chinese left the sugar estates, their contracts ended, and many East Indians reverted to their ancestral occupations. Some became farmers, some became fishermen, whilst others returned to trades such as becoming barbers, goldsmith, and ironsmith. And we still see that in Kingston today, like I said earlier on, with Jewelorama as being one of the popular jewelry places in town. But many didn't know that some of the best barbers back in the day were Chinese and Indians. And they also became money lenders. In the previous class, I told you about drop hand. The Chinese were famous for that, for introducing drop hand. It wasn't borrowing money, but it was actually the precursor to the lotto. Precursor meaning before the lotto existed, that also existed. And you find that in some towns and in some cities like Spanish Town, drop hand is still famous today. Drop hand is a game of chance where you choose a number. The number is known to you, and it's known to the person who is controlling the game. And that person keeps that number for you with your name written beside it. But other people might come and purchase other numbers, and if that number is played, that's the winning number, and you get all that bag of money. Still happens in Jamaica today. It's not legal under the Betting and Games and Lottery Commission, however, but it still happens in our country today. The Chinese and the East Indians, when they left the plantation, some of the East Indians took up jobs as making brass, silver, gold ornaments, which were indispensable to their lifestyle. And this influenced the Afro-Jamaicans. We can see that today still existing in our culture. You look at when Usain Bolt is about to do a race, he has his golden necklace around his neck. Most Jamaicans on the streets today, they'll have their necklace, their rings, their ornaments, everything, all influenced by these Indians. And they're well decorated, probably with a lion on it, some flowers, different decorations. Now, you look at how the East Indians set up shop. You have the Shatanis, you have the Chulanis, the Twani, the Matahani, the Swani, Vaswani. These are names which we say are synonymous to the manufacturing, the wholesale, retail, or the inbound businesses. You check these jewelry stores downtown, uptown Kingston, in Montego Bay, or in Ocho Rios. They are predominantly controlled by East Indians. Now, the Chinese also set up shop. Mr. Chin had bakeries downtown Kingston and in Montego Bay. Most of the Chinese, at the end of their contract, established small enterprises or small businesses after they left the plantation. But these businesses grew and grew into large businesses today. Some of the bakeries and shops, Continental Bakery, for instance, has its leaning towards a Chinese ancestry. Now, some of the restaurants uptown in Kingston that some of us really love, they're controlled by people of Chinese descent. The Chinese shops provided credit and loans for members of the community because they realize that pay don't run until the end of the month or every 2 weeks. But in the meantime, you have to stop the gap. So they would write up a little credit bill and they write your name, 1 pound of flour, half a bread, tiller oil. And they wrote down those things and they knew that when your mother or father sent you to the shop, by the end of the month they would come in and pay. Although some shops today tell you that it's in God we trust. Yes, half a tree today in Jamaica, you can still see Chang's Emporium. Now, Chang's Emporium remains as a long-standing Chinese shop. Right there in Half a Tree, you have an article which was written by Frank Phipps, Queen's Counsel, who in 2016 wrote about the Chang's Emporium, which is right across from where there in Half a Tree, you have the courthouse, the police station. So the Chinese were there in the busy setting of Half a Tree. Now, the China shop, as it's popularly known in Jamaica, because they say, well, where are you going? I'm going, Mr. Chin, Chinese shop, where you go? Chinese shop. Now, the China shop, it's a variety store or a haberdashery where the Wholesalers and the Retailers Association were formed really in Jamaica. We have to thank the Chinese for that because of their hard work downtown in Kingston and in Montego Bay. They formed retail associations. Most of the Chinese lived on the top floor of these shops. And living on the top floor of these shops, all they would do is go down in the mornings, clean up, fix up everything. Children assist with them. You know, the same way how it is, you are on the farm with your parents and they tell you go and tie the goat and carry the cow for water in the mornings before you go to school. Same thing happened with these Chinese now. Their children also had to work in the shops. But you still find that today because several Chinese students in school still come in and work in the shops in the days or in the evenings after school and on the weekends. So it's a family business. A family that prays together, stays together. So even if the Chinese were Buddhists or worship Confucius sayings, they stayed together and they stayed together in the shops, and they worked together as a community. Some Afro-Jamaicans thought they were being clannish or they were separating themselves, but they realized the value of family. And that's what we must appreciate of these Chinese, the value of family. Family is very important. Now, earlier on, we told you about the droppan, which is now the cash pot, because cash pot is now famous for that. Now, the Chinese also had their music business. Out of the school, St. George's College in Kingston, a lot of Chinese attended that school. And Byron Lee, as one of the students of St. George's College, past students that is, he formed the band Byron Lee and the Dragonaires. The dragon coming from St. George slaying the dragon. And he formed that band, Byron Lee and the Dragonaires, which became the popular and the lead band for our carnival in Jamaica. Byron Lee introduced carnival on a large scale in Jamaica. So we see the influence of the Chinese setting up shop, giving us entertainment with Byron Lee for several years, and giving us the gambling. We'll take a break now, and when we come back, we'll continue looking at divisions in society.